The heavy oak doors of Providence Municipal Court swung open at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, and everyone in the courtroom turned to watch. A young woman strode in wearing a pristine white Burberry coat worth at least $2,000, carrying a Louis Vuitton handbag casually over one shoulder. Her designer sunglasses, Gucci, probably $400, remained perched on her head despite being indoors. Everything about 23-year-old Khloe Miller screamed money and confidence, but it was the smirk on her face that caught Judge Frank Caprio's attention. In his 37 years on the bench, he'd learned that smirk usually meant trouble. Before we dive into what happened in that courtroom, if you believe in justice and want to support a new channel dedicated to sharing these powerful stories, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Every subscription helps us bring more of Judge Caprio's wisdom to light. Khloe's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached the defendant's table. Behind her walked a nervous-looking attorney in an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The bailiff called the case. The People versus Khloe Ann Miller, case number 2024 TRF 8847. Charges include reckless driving, threatening a police officer, and attempting to interfere with official duties. Judge Caprio looked up from the file in front of him, his reading glasses perched on his nose. The paperwork told an interesting story. 3 speeding violations in the past year, all mysteriously dismissed. 2 parking tickets, both voided. And now this. A traffic stop that had escalated into something far more serious. The arresting officer's name caught his eye. Officer Marcus Davis, a 12-year veteran with a spotless record and commendations for community service. Ms. Miller, Judge Caprio said softly, his voice carrying that gentle authority that had become his trademark. Please approach the bench. Khloe sighed audibly, rolling her eyes as if this entire proceeding was beneath her. She walked forward with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced real consequences. Her attorney followed, whispering urgently in her ear, but she waved him off dismissively. Ms. Miller, I'm looking at the police report from Officer Davis, the judge continued, removing his glasses to look at her directly. It says that on the evening of October 15th, you were stopped for driving 65 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone on Waterman Street. Is that correct? Khloe shrugged. I might have been going a little fast. It's not a big deal. The courtroom fell silent. Even her attorney winced. Judge Caprio's expression didn't change, but those who knew him recognized the slight pause before he spoke again. Let me understand something. You were driving more than double the speed limit in a residential area, past Roger Williams Elementary School, at 3:15 in the afternoon. Do you know what time school lets out, Ms. Miller? I don't really pay attention to. 3 o'clock, Judge Caprio interrupted quietly. Children were walking home. Parents were picking up their kids. You were driving 65 miles per hour. Khloe's smirk faltered for just a moment before returning. Look, Your Honor, I think there's been some misunderstanding. My father is Chief Thompson of the Providence Police Department. If you could just call him, I'm sure we can clear this up quickly. He's handled these situations before. The temperature in the courtroom seemed to drop several degrees. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, studying the young woman before him with the careful attention of someone who'd spent decades reading people. In my 37 years as a judge, I've learned that justice cannot have 2 standards. The law applies equally to everyone who stands in this courtroom. Your father's position doesn't change the facts of this case. Fine, Khloe said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. Then let's talk about the facts. That officer, Davis, He was completely out of line. He was rude, aggressive, and honestly, I felt threatened. I have every right to file a complaint against him. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Officer Davis has been with the Providence Police Department for 12 years. His record shows 17 commendations, including recognition for de-escalation training and community policing. But let's not rely on records alone. Fortunately, Officer Davis was wearing a body camera during your traffic stop. I've reviewed the footage, Ms. Miller, and I'd like to play it for the court now. The color drained slightly from Khloe's face, but she maintained her composure. That's really not necessary. Bailiff, please dim the lights and play the video evidence marked as Exhibit A. The courtroom's attention shifted to the large monitor. The timestamp showed 3:17 p.m., October 15th. The video began with Officer Davis's calm voice. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Officer Davis with the Providence Police Department. I stopped you today because I clocked you going 65 in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. May I see your license and registration, please? On the screen, Khloe's voice came through clearly, dripping with disdain. Are you serious right now? Do you know who I am? Ma'am, I need to see your license and registration. I'm Khloe Miller, Chief Thompson's daughter. Maybe you've heard of him? Your boss? Officer Davis's response was professional and measured. Ma'am, your relationship to the chief doesn't change the traffic violation. License and registration, please. This is ridiculous. The video showed Khloe pulling out her phone. I'm calling my father right now, and you're going to be directing traffic in the worst neighborhood in the city by tomorrow. What happened next shocked everyone in the courtroom. On the video, Khloe stepped out of her Mercedes-Benz C-Class, a $45,000 car, and got within inches of Officer Davis's face. Listen to me very carefully, she said, her voice low and threatening. You're going to get back in your little cop car, tear up that ticket, and pretend this never happened. Or I promise you, my father will make your life a living hell. He can transfer you, demote you, or find a reason to fire you. Your career is in my hands right now. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, transfixed by what she was witnessing. On screen, Officer Davis remained completely calm. Ma'am, threatening a police officer is a crime. I'm going to need you to step back and return to your vehicle. Or what? Khloe laughed, a cruel sound. You'll arrest the police chief's daughter? Career suicide, officer. Absolute career suicide. Judge Caprio raised his hand, and the bailiff paused the video. The judge looked at Khloe, who had gone very still, her earlier confidence evaporating. Ms. Miller, you threatened Officer Davis's career, his livelihood, his ability to serve this community. You used your father's position, a position dedicated to upholding the law, to try to place yourself above that same law. Khloe's attorney stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, my client was upset. Perhaps her words were poorly chosen, but nothing, Judge Caprio said, his voice still soft but carrying the weight of decades of moral authority. Continue the video, please. The footage resumed. Officer Davis remained professional. Ma'am, I'm issuing you a citation for reckless driving. The fine is $150 and you'll need to appear in court. Additionally, because of the threat you've just made, I'm required to note this incident in my report. You're making the biggest mistake of your career, Khloe hissed. My father is going to destroy you. The video ended. The lights came back up, revealing a courtroom full of shocked faces. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes, suddenly looking every one of his years. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with disappointment. Miss Miller, I've presided over thousands of cases. I've seen people make mistakes, good people who had bad days, who let stress or fear cloud their judgment. I've seen parents struggle to pay fines, elderly people confused by the system, teenagers who didn't understand the consequences of their actions. In those cases, compassion isn't an exception to justice. It's the purpose of justice. He paused, letting his words settle over the courtroom. But what I just witnessed on that video wasn't a mistake. It wasn't someone having a bad day. It was a calculated attempt to pervert the justice system using privilege and threats. You didn't just break the law, Ms. Miller. You tried to break the spirit of the law, the principle that we are all equal before it. Khloe's jaw tightened. Her attorney placed a warning hand on her arm, but she shook it off. With all due respect, Your Honor, you're making way too big a deal out of this. It was just a traffic stop. Everyone's acting like I committed some major crime. If Judge Caprio's compassion moves you like it moves millions of others, show your support by subscribing to our channel. We're just starting out, and your subscription means everything. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Let me understand something. You believe driving at twice the speed limit past an elementary school isn't serious? You believe threatening a police officer who was simply doing his job isn't serious? You believe attempting to use your father's position to avoid consequences isn't serious? I believe, Khloe said, her voice rising, her composure finally cracking, that this entire court is wasting my time. I have places to be. I have a life. And honestly, I don't think you understand how things really work in this city. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Her attorney's face went pale. He tried to speak, but Khloe wasn't finished. My father practically runs this city. One phone call from him, and half the people in this courthouse would be out of a job. So maybe, Your Honor, instead of lecturing me about the law, you should consider who you're dealing with. The silence that followed was deafening. Judge Caprio sat perfectly still for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the courtroom. In my 37 years on the bench, I have heard many things. I have been threatened, cajoled, and occasionally insulted. But never, never has someone stood in my courtroom and suggested that justice should bow to power, that the law should bend to privilege. He opened a folder on his desk, pulling out several documents. Ms. Miller, do you know Officer Marcus Davis's full story? Let me tell you. He grew up in South Providence. His mother cleaned houses to put him through community college. He became a police officer because he wanted to make his neighborhood safer. He volunteers at the Boys and Girls Club every Tuesday evening. He's coaching basketball to kids who look up to him as a role model. And you threatened to destroy his career because he had the audacity to do his job. Khloe opened her mouth to respond, but Judge Caprio held up his hand. I'm not finished. After your traffic stop, do you know what happened to Officer Davis? His supervisors called him in for questioning. Because of your father's position, they opened an internal investigation. For 3 weeks, this good man who serves his community with distinction, has been under scrutiny, waiting to see if a false complaint from the police chief's daughter would end the career he's dedicated his life to building. The judge picked up his phone, pressed a button. Bailiff, is Officer Davis here today? Yes, Your Honor. He's waiting outside the courtroom. Please ask him to enter. The doors opened, and a tall African-American man in his mid-30s walked in, wearing his dress uniform. Officer Marcus Davis moved with quiet dignity, his medals catching the light. He stood at attention, his face carefully neutral, but his eyes showed the strain of the past 3 weeks. Judge Caprio addressed him directly. "Officer Davis, thank you for being here today. I want you to know that I've reviewed the body camera footage multiple times. Your conduct during that traffic stop was exemplary. You showed professionalism in the face of threats and intimidation. This court recognizes your service and your integrity." Officer Davis's jaw tightened with emotion. "Thank you, Your Honor. Furthermore, I will be sending a letter to your supervisors commending your actions and recommending that the internal investigation be closed immediately with a full exoneration. Any complaint filed by Ms. Miller should be dismissed as frivolous and retaliatory." For the first time, Khloe looked genuinely worried. She leaned over to her attorney, whispering urgently. He shook his head, his expression grim. Judge Caprio turned his attention back to Khloe. "Ms. Miller, I'm going to explain something to you now, and I want you to listen carefully. The courtroom is the great equalizer. In here, it doesn't matter if your father is the police chief or the governor or the president. In here, your designer clothes, an expensive car, and family connections mean nothing. In here, we have only one currency: truth and justice." He pulled out his sentencing notes. "For the reckless driving charge, I'm fining you $500 and I'm suspending your license for 90 days. For threatening a police officer, I'm ordering you to complete 100 hours of community service. You will serve those hours at the Providence Community Center in South Providence, under the supervision of the Youth Program Director. You will work with the same community that Officer Davis serves, the community you put at risk with your reckless driving." Khloe's face flushed red. "You can't be serious. 100 hours? In South Providence? That's..." "Furthermore," Judge Caprio continued, his voice cutting through her protest like a knife, "for your contemptuous behavior in this courtroom today, for your disrespect toward this court and the principles it represents, I'm fining you an additional $1,000. And I'm ordering you to attend a course on civic responsibility and the role of law in a democratic society. You will write a 5-page paper on the importance of equal justice under the law, and you will present it to me in this courtroom in 60 days. "This is insane!" Khloe's voice rose to a near shout. "You're punishing me because of who my father is. This is discrimination." Judge Caprio's expression didn't change. "No, Ms. Miller. I'm holding you accountable because of who you are. You're an adult woman who chose to break the law, endanger others, threaten a public servant, and then mock the justice system itself. Your father's position doesn't make you exempt from consequences. It makes your behavior more egregious, because you should know better. You were raised in a household dedicated to law enforcement, yet you tried to pervert that very system for your own benefit." He closed the file in front of him. "Rules exist to serve people, not to be weapons for the privileged. Justice cannot have two standards, one for those with connections and another for everyone else. You stand here today like every other person who breaks the law in this city, and you will face the same consequences." Khloe's attorney finally managed to interject. "Your Honor, may I request a brief recess to consult with my client?" Denied. Ms. Miller has had multiple opportunities to show contrition, respect, or even basic decency. She's chosen defiance at every turn. The sentence stands. Judge Caprio looked directly at Khloe. "You have 14 days to begin your community service. If you fail to comply, you'll face contempt of court charges and possible jail time. Do you understand?" Khloe stood there, her face a mixture of shock and fury. Her carefully constructed facade of privilege had crumbled, leaving only a young woman who'd never been told no before. When she finally spoke, Her voice was small. "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down with a sound like thunder, but what happened next shocked everyone even more. As Khloe turned to leave, still stunned by the severity of her sentence, the courtroom doors opened again. A tall man in a police chief's uniform walked in. Chief Robert Thompson, Khloe's father. He'd been listening from outside the courtroom. His face was grave, lined with disappointment, and something that looked like shame. "Your Honor," Chief Thompson said, his voice thick with emotion. "May I approach?" Judge Caprio nodded. The chief walked to the front of the courtroom, standing next to his daughter. He didn't look at her. Instead, he addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, I want to apologize to this court and to Officer Davis. My daughter's actions don't reflect the values I've tried to instill or the principles I've dedicated my career to upholding. I've spent 30 years in law enforcement fighting to ensure equal justice for all, and to hear my own child try to pervert that system." His voice cracked. "I'm ashamed." He turned to Officer Davis. "Marcus, you're one of the finest officers in my department. The investigation into Khloe's complaint has been closed as of this morning, before I even knew about today's hearing. Your record is spotless, and it will remain that way. I owe you an apology for putting you through that ordeal." Officer Davis nodded, maintaining his professional composure, but his eyes showed relief and gratitude. Chief Thompson finally looked at his daughter. The disappointment in his eyes was crushing. "Khloe, I've protected you too much. I've made excuses for you, fixed your problems, and shielded you from consequences. I see now that was the worst thing I could have done. Starting today, that ends. You'll serve every hour of your community service. You'll write that paper. You'll learn what I should have taught you years ago, that no one is above the law." Khloe's eyes filled with tears, but whether from shame or anger, it was impossible to tell. Judge Caprio spoke softly. "Chief Thompson, you didn't fail as a father. Your daughter made her own choices. But I appreciate your words and your integrity in coming here today. This court has always had tremendous respect for your service to this community." The chief nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Your Honor. I promise you, my daughter will complete everything this court has ordered. I'll personally ensure it." As the Thompsons left the courtroom, father and daughter in heavy silence, Officer Davis approached the bench. "Your Honor, thank you. For 3 weeks I've been wondering if doing the right thing was going to cost me my career. Thank you for showing that justice still matters." Judge Caprio smiled gently. "Officer Davis, in 37 years, I've learned that doing the right thing is always worth it, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Keep serving your community with the same integrity you showed on that traffic stop. We need more officers like you." After Officer Davis left, Judge Caprio sat alone in the empty courtroom for a moment, looking at the American flag that hung behind his bench. He thought about all the cases he'd seen, all the people who'd stood where Khloe Miller had stood. Some had come with humility and remorse. Others, like Khloe, had come with arrogance and entitlement. But they all left having learned the same lesson. In this courtroom, privilege offers no protection from justice. The story of what happened that day spread quickly through Providence. The video of Khloe's traffic stop and her courtroom outburst went viral, viewed millions of times within days. People across the country weighed in. Some praised Judge Caprio's firm stance. Others debated whether the sentence was too harsh. But everyone agreed on one thing. The system had worked the way it was supposed to. The powerful hadn't escaped accountability. 3 months later, Khloe Miller completed her final hour of community service at the Providence Community Center. The experience had transformed her in ways no one expected. Working with at-risk youth, many from families struggling with poverty and systemic barriers, had opened her eyes to realities she'd never considered. She'd tutored kids with homework, helped organize meals for families, and listened to stories that broke her heart. On her last day, she sat down with Maria Santos, a 15-year-old girl she'd been mentoring. Maria's mother worked 3 jobs to keep their family housed. Maria herself was on track to be the first in her family to attend college, despite facing obstacles Khloe had never imagined. "Miss Khloe," Maria said, "why are you doing community service here?" Khloe could have lied, could have made up some story. Instead, she told the truth. "Because I made terrible choices. I thought being the police chief's daughter meant I didn't have to follow the same rules as everyone else. I was wrong, and I hurt people. This is my second chance to learn what really matters." Maria nodded thoughtfully. "My mom always says that making mistakes doesn't make you bad. It's what you do after that counts." Those words stayed with Khloe long after her community service ended. When she returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom to present her civic responsibility paper, she was a different person than the arrogant young woman who'd first walked through those doors. Her paper wasn't just an academic exercise. It was a reflection on privilege, accountability, and the fundamental principle that justice must be blind to wealth and connections. Judge Caprio read her paper carefully, then looked up at her. "Ms. Miller, this is excellent work. More importantly, I can see that these past 3 months have taught you something valuable. Tell me, what's the most important lesson you've learned?" Khloe thought for a moment before answering. "That money can buy comfort, but never class. That my father's position gave me opportunities, but it was my responsibility not to abuse them. That Officer Davis deserved my respect, not my contempt. And that justice, real justice, protects everyone or it protects no one." For the first time since meeting Khloe Miller, Judge Caprio smiled. "Those are lessons that took me years to learn, and I see them reflected in your actions, not just your words. You've completed all the requirements this court set for you. Your case is now closed." As Khloe stood to leave, Judge Caprio added one more thing. "Ms. Miller, I've been doing this job for 37 years, and do you know what keeps me coming back every day? It's moments like this. It's seeing someone learn that compassion isn't an exception to justice. It's the purpose. It's witnessing transformation. You came into this courtroom thinking you were above the law. You're leaving understanding that the law exists to elevate all of us." 6 months later, Khloe Miller did something no one expected. She enrolled in law school, not to follow in her father's footsteps in law enforcement, but to pursue a career in public interest law, helping underserved communities access justice. She continued volunteering at the Providence Community Center, now as a mentor rather than as punishment. Officer Marcus Davis received the Providence Police Department's Community Service Medal for his dedication to youth programs and his exemplary conduct under pressure. His internal investigation file was not just closed, but expunged, and he was promoted to sergeant. Chief Thompson implemented new training protocols for the entire police department on ethical conduct and the importance of equal treatment under the law, using his daughter's case as an example of how privilege should never influence justice. And Judge Frank Caprio continued to preside over Providence Municipal Court, treating every person who entered with the same dignity, whether they came in designer clothes or work boots, whether they were police chiefs' daughters or struggling parents. In his courtroom, the only thing that mattered was the content of character and the commitment to justice. If this story touched your heart, if you believe judges like Frank Caprio represent the best of our justice system, please support our new channel by subscribing and liking this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that justice and compassion can coexist. Comment below with your city. Let's build a community that believes in fairness for all. The lesson of that October afternoon in Providence Municipal Court echoed far beyond Rhode Island. It reminded everyone who heard the story that in America, we are all supposed to be equal before the law. Sometimes that principle is tested. Sometimes the powerful try to place themselves above it. But on that day, in that courtroom, justice prevailed. Because in the end, the courtroom truly is the great equalizer. And sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones we need most.